Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Lambert. I'm the editor for the LVN newsletter, and this month we are shining the spotlight on Jessica Lim. Jessica is the National Director, Practice Management Disputes at Borden, Ladner and Gervais LLP in Toronto. Jessica, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you have done a two-part and soon to be three-part writing on strategic planning, which included where do you start with strategic planning, and then the second article talking about analysis on the LVN website. So let's talk a little bit before we talk about your writing. Let's hear a little bit about you. Can you give me just a little bit of background on you?
Sure. So my background is that I have a business degree. So I come from the business side of the law firm, as opposed to being a practicing lawyer. And I originally started out my career in marketing. And so for, I don't know how many years, I want to say at least 10, I was on the marketing and BD path. And then I really deliberately evolved my career into, like, for lack of a better term, the P3 space at one phase, which P3 being pricing, process improvement, project management. I'd say both legal project management and the internal project management. And then from there, as you can tell in reference to the strategy articles, I started taking on roles related to operational and annual operational plan, longer term strategic planning, and then working with leadership in law firm environment to basically drive growth and manage the P&L.
So what were kind of the motivations to push you over into the legal operations and project management space?
Yeah, good question. So I'd say there's about four main things that really drove me into that. It's really about learning client value, our internal clients, and internal gaps in law firms. So in terms of learning, I mean, it's a personal thing. I like learning, and it keeps me going. I always need to be learning and developing new skills. So, you can see I'm always getting a new certificate and taking new class and various things. So I'm always curious. Client value is a big thing. So even in my marketing and BD days, I've always been a big believer that in order to be effective, we need to know what our clients value. And it's clients, at one point, doing the marketing and BD, it was really more about our external clients and what did they value. And of course, we could start to see way back when, like going back to like 2013, 2014, the shift that started happening in a law firm environment coming out of the financial crisis, when pricing, process improvement, and project management all became a thing. And we could see that because we were getting sometimes direct letters or sometimes in our proposals from clients asking, what are law firms doing about that? And can we show some tangible evidence of how we're addressing pricing, improving our processes to be more efficient, and managing matters better? So that's a big thing. It's what clients value. But also in terms of our internal clients, I think that's another thing that it really wasn't until like later in my career when I started to be really conscious of the importance of thinking about our lawyers as our internal clients and really knowing their business. We know when we listen to in-house counsel panel discussions, and they're always saying they want law firms to know their business. Well, law firms want business services people to know their business. I really wanted to move out of marketing and BD and get into things like pricing, process improvement, project management to start to get closer to the practice and understand more about what's going on in the matter. How do we price that? How do we manage that better? So really digging in and trying to understand that. And then the fourth thing that I mentioned was internal gaps. And it's just, really in the early days of these areas becoming a thing, there weren't legal pricing people out there. They were created in law firms, and then of course hired from sometimes other industries and trained on legal. But there were a lot of gaps at one point, and so I thought, well, why not try and fill that gap myself and get that knowledge and experience.
So, what what inspired you then to get involved in Legal Value Networks? Especially being in Canada, what kind of connections are you building there?
Yeah, good question. I think to me, there's kind of two levels of involvement, and there's been a bit of an evolution for me with LVN. My involvement with LVN in the beginning actually kind of predates LVN, and a lot of the founders of LVN, of course, were involved in what was LMAP3, and then of course became LVN, and there was also, I don't know if you could call it a spin-off, but the Sally group as well. I got involved in those because really I wanted to learn, and I was looking for different ways to learn the trends, the best practices. Again, as I was moving from marketing and BD and wanting to become more involved in pricing, process improvement, project management, I thought it was really important to soak up every conference, webinar, article, and get to know people in the network, which has been super helpful. But it has evolved a little bit. I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it occurred to me that I had now really benefited from all of that involvement over the years, but my colleagues and team members didn't have that. And, especially here in Canada, we didn't have an LVN, and there was no forum for people to get together. So then it kind of evolved into me wanting to help others in the community become connected and learn from LVN in the same way that I did.
Are you getting the impression that LVN is resonating with the Canadian market, and what kind of resources are the community looking for to make an impact?
That's a good question. I think it is resonating. I think there is an appetite out there among the professionals that are involved in. First of all, there's the people that are involved in, for lack of a better term, I'll just say P3, involved in that space. But then there's also some people who I've noticed are not directly involved, but like in their day to day, they might be in marketing and business development, for example, but they're interested in LVN. And I think it's two different camps. If the people who are doing it now, I think they enjoy learning, like meeting other people in the industry and having conversations about, the common challenges that they face, learning a little tips and tricks and best practices. But then the people who aren't doing it now, I think, see that this is really important to our law firm clients, and we need to understand these things better. So even people in marketing and business development, they know as they're writing new business proposals, for example, they are seeing that clients are asking about these things. So it's another avenue for them to stay on top of what's important to clients, how can we address it, and how are we addressing it?
Yeah, and I know you have put your own efforts in sharing your experiences as well through your writings. Now, I know we were talking earlier that we've got 2 articles on the LVN webpage that you've written, and soon there's your latest installment on strategic planning dives into the formulation stage. Can you talk a little bit about your writings and what you're hoping that your peers get out of what you're sharing?
What I was hoping to accomplish in starting this series is putting something out there that for people who are embarking on the strategic planning process, or even kind of smaller scale annual planning for anything, whether it could be a business service, it could be a practice group, could be a focus group, whatever. But people who are embarking on that, give them something that they can turn to with practical, useful insights that are beyond the pure business textbook. As I've gone through my own experiences, doing operational planning, some 5-year strategic planning, and again, at various levels, I've had questions myself, and I turn to people and I have a lot of conversations, and I found that, over time, others have those same questions. So I really thought it would be helpful to get something out there that is, the textbook married with kind of practical nuances that are very relevant to the unique law firm environment.
Well, I'm excited to see the third installment, and maybe there will be a fourth one at some point.
Maybe
Maybe.
this year, maybe next year.
So let's talk about the LVN road trips, because Toronto will be hosting the final installment for this year on the road trips, and the happy hours that we've held in the different cities across the U.S. and now Canada. It's all been about fostering local connections. So can you tell us a little bit about what your plans are there for the event in Toronto, which is going to be on Tuesday, November 19th from 5:30 to 7:30 at Edna and Vita there in Toronto.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the plan's really quite simple. It's just bring together all of the people in, the greater Toronto area who are doing pricing, process improvement, or project management, whether legal or internal project management at law firms, and people who are interested in this space for the reasons I mentioned earlier. Bring them together, have some fun, and get to build on their network. That network is so valuable, and I think enriches our day-to-day work just by being able to call people up, go for coffee, brainstorm over things. So I think it's a really great place. And again, people in these roles don't have a lot of other venues for that. So I think this is a really great opportunity for people to have some fun, build on their network.
All right, before I let you go, anything exciting on the horizon, or what's exciting you going into 2025?
Oh, what's exciting me going into 2025? Good question. We're really just in the planning stages right now. I mean, to me, 2025, there's so much stuff going on in the industry right now with AI and questions around transformation and how that's going to affect things. So I always look at like that's an interesting, inspiring thing, but we're at a time of year where we're doing our planning, and it's a chance to hit the reset button and, reprioritize and really double down on the things that we think are going to make a real impact for both our internal clients and our external clients. So it's really that.
Nice. All right. Well, Jessica Lim, National Director of Practice Management Disputes at Borden, Ladner, and Gervais. Thank you very much for letting us shine a spotlight on you this month.
Thanks for having me.